If my back squat and deadlift are 100 pounds different, is that bad?
Not necessarily. So this isn't bad in the sense you're thinking where you're like, okay, I've messed up all this training. What can often happen here is that sometimes you're just much better at one of these lifts than the other. Now, typically I would give more leeway to someone whose deadlift is much further than their back squat. So you might find someone like Dara, for example, who just is very good at deadlifting without even training it properly or really getting after it. And they have this just build for deadlifting. They have this predisposition for being better at deadlifting. And so they'll think, okay, I'm deadlifting 230 kilos, but my back squat's only 180 kilos. But in reality here, you might be sufficiently strong enough at your current level of back squat. That might be a good representation of your training experience and genetics after, let's say, 4 years of training. You're currently at 180 squat and you started at 80 kilos. That's great progress. It could just so happen that your deadlift is something that you're really good at. And let's say it's 180 after 4 years on your back squat, but you're deadlifting 240 kilos. This could be very, very appropriate ratios between these two because you could just be really well built for deadlifting. It could be just something that you get beyond any other lift, and it's totally fine. Where this issue would come in is usually what you should see is if the squat is much stronger than the deadlift, there's probably a couple of issues going on with the deadlift. So the other way around, it could be your squat is perfectly fine. Your squat increasing will probably push your deadlift up further. So if you were, say, 180, 230 like that, you squat 200 kilos, it's probably going to even push your deadlift up higher, which is perfectly fine. However, if you're someone, for example, who can squat 230 kilos, but you're barely deadlifting like 205 kilos, there's probably a couple of things going on in your deadlift that's causing an issue. Because at a bare minimum, for most people, your squat and deadlift should be pretty similar unless you're sumo deadlifting and you're cheating, or you're incredibly well built for deadlifting. Most people should be quite similar. And then if you really got after it, the deadlift will probably push ahead in most scenarios for that squat. So if the deadlift is really far ahead of the back squat, probably fine. Now, really far, if you're deadlifting 230 and you're back squatting 120 after 4 or 5 years, and you have a bit of an issue there and you need to get your finger out and start back squatting. And like we just showed there with someone like Nick, he's not well built for squatting, but he's high bar squatting 248 kilos without knee sleeves on full depth. He's built like Dara. It's not a good build for squatting. He's able to do that.
It's not a good thing.
It's not good. So in those scenarios, if it's really far apart, like 100 pounds, 45 kilos, not crazy, not ratios I'd want for myself personally, but they could be a reasonable representation. Yours like 40 pounds, 50 pounds, so like 20 kilos, 30 kilos.
Mine's 20 kilos, yeah.
So it's not unreasonable to assume that. And even at the very start, sometimes you could be really good at deadlifting and bad at squatting. But if it's the other way around, if your squat is really far ahead of your deadlift, you need to pull the finger out and get deadlifting because there's no real reason you shouldn't be able to at least match those and then probably push one a little bit further ahead.
In my brain, around 15% of a difference is an all right kind of ratio to sit in.
Yeah.